Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'll be taking you guys through a tournament that I played yesterday and how I got 3 swindles in that 4-round tournament. So I played 2 tournaments before this one and now my rating is currently at 2141, and in the first round I'm playing a 2003 rated player. And I just want to remind you guys that these games go kind of fast. It's a 45-minute game with a 5-second delay. And yeah, so he plays the Rossolimo variation, and we trade off these pawns, and I just castle my king. And here, in this position, I struggle to find a solid plan, because I was thinking I could go rook b8, try and get my rook on this file, and I don't exactly want to go bishop b7 now, although I do want to go d5, because if I go bishop b7, I was worried of attacks like queen b3, so I go queen c7, because I want to try and help this f5 move, and I didn't feel comfortable doing it now, because if f5, there could be a potential bishop g5. So I go queen c7, and this happens, and I go f5. We trade off a bunch of pieces, and he goes rook a d1. And now I can't go d5, because he can take, and if all this happened, and I lose my queen. So I go queen to b7, because I want to attack the pawn and have another plan in mind. And I was considering going d6 here and try and go like bishop e5 and bring my bishop out that way, but I was worried one of these two pawns will be weak and backwards and I would lose one of them. So I go queen b7 because I want to get d5 now since there's no pin. And here I thought he should have went knight a4, in which I would have went d5. If I can't take, because after rook b1, rook b5, I think he missed this move bishop f4. It's like a nice cheeky little move, and now I lose the bishop. So rook a8, then he can just take. And if bishop e5, then just take. Or wait, yeah, you take now, and then you take. Because now this is just, yes, now this is just winning. So he goes b3, and now I go queen b4, which is just not a good move at all, because he just goes knight e4, and now I can't go d5, because he has this annoying move bishop c5, and what I saw in the game was not exactly like the computer's best response, but I saw that once he does this, b4, queen a3, that I was in a bind. He could even take this bishop. I didn't think he would want me to get the bishop out, and I thought I was going to lose this game. I thought he was going to somehow bring all his pieces to the e-file. My king is still kind of weak. My queen is out of place. And I just thought I was going to lose because of that. So after knight e4, I go bishop to f8 because I'm stopping this bishop c5 idea. And right now there's nothing, he could go bishop d4 on this diagonal. And what he does is actually better. He takes the pawn first and then goes bishop d4. And my king is kind of weak. He has an extra pawn, which is actually, he could make that a pass pawn, an a pass pawn, which would be incredibly annoying to deal with. And now I struggle to find a plan, so I just go bishop e7 to stop knight f6. And now he finds a nice move queen b2, which is not the computer's best choice. Actually, the computer wants him to go bishop a1 with the idea of queen b2 and checkmate, and actually I'm just losing. I can't stop that. So yeah, but he goes queen b2 with a nice idea is once I go d5, he hits me with this nice move bishop h8. And now in the game I go rook f7, and had I gone bishop f8, knight f6 check, and if king takes h8, knight d5, discovered, check, and actually queen g7, king g7, knight b4, apparently it's sort of fine for me because I can get the pawn and maybe I can hold the draw, but I actually didn't see c5 in the game. And hold up, so after knight f6, king f7, knight h7, I'm just down 2 pawns, so I can't do that. And so I go rook f7, and he hits me with this, which is just a very nasty move to deal with. I'm actually just losing now. If bishop takes g5, rook e8 check, rook f8, queen g7 checkmate. and I'm supposed to sack the queen after this, and he just consolidates the position, and I lose. So after knight g5, I decide let's sacrifice the exchange, and now we get our bishop out. So after bishop f5, I need to mobilize these pawns, and that's what I try to do. I mobilize the pawns like this. I find the queen trade as long as I get these pawns to c5 and d4. And here goes bishop a1. He can't go a4 because I can take. So this bishop's actually kind of annoying to deal with. And now I go bishop f5, trying to prepare d3. And here he tries to set up a little trap. He goes g3, and immediately I'm like, wait, bishop g4? But actually has this move f3, and if takes, rook f1, or rook f2, my bishop is pinned, and I just lose. So after g3, I just push the pawn, f3, all this happens, he pushes his pawns. I want to try and provoke f4, so now he has these weak light squares to deal with, and I'm slowly getting back in. And actually, this is all I have in notation, so I don't have like the full game because I started to get low on time. So I'll just kind of show you what happened. These weren't exactly the moves, but eventually he sacrifices the exchange back for this, and I take this pawn, a5, I stop his pawn, and he lets me get my king in, and now I just push, and I eventually promote, and I stop his pawn, and I eventually win the game. So that's game number 1. So now I'm going to show you game number 2, where I'm playing a 22-32. And by the way, this is literally the round afterwards, so this is the second round. And he plays the modern defense, and I play the 3-pawn attack, or the Austrian attack. c6, all of this happens, bishop e3, queen d2, he takes, this is a, you don't make these moves, because these are like poison pawns, because now I get this play, and I'm doing really good here. He has like not very good development, and his king is kind of weak. So he takes and goes knight d7, castles, and queen a5. He wants to mobilize his pawns to try and attack my king. And here I go e5, blocking his bishop. d5, and here I consider going e6, but I just thought like after this bishop h3, he can just go knight f6, and I just didn't think of this too much. I don't think this is a real attack here. So after d5, I go h4, and after e6, I miss a good opportunity. Actually, I don't miss it, but I underestimate how like powerful that was. I could have went for this move knight to b5, and he's forced to take my queen, and now I can get my knight to d6, a little intermezzo check. Point of king e7, knight c8, and if king d8, I take, I'm forking both these pawns, and if king f8, I still take, I'm forking these two pieces, and after, I just didn't think my position was that good. I thought he was getting his knight, but I guess I underestimated the power, because now after something like h5, and I bring my rook, I can take, and I'm breaking through. So I thought I would just go h5 right away. I have a queen, he has like a sort of weak king, let's just attack the king. So I take and go bishop d3. And after knight h6, I decide to just sack the pawn. And all of this happens, and I'm actually doing really good here. But this is where I slowly start to go around. So I go queen h2, bishop g7, queen h7, king f8. And here, after e6, there's knight to f6. And yeah, this position does not, like, he wins the pawn, and he brings the king, and he brings the rook, and I'm just going to lose. So after king f8, I thought, okay, my position is totally good, bishop h6, I'm just going to win. But then I completely miss his idea that he's going to guard his king with the knight, and he's going to move the queen, and my counterplay is just not fast enough. I thought if e6, so who cares, knight f8. And this somehow is not winning. Like, I can't, like, knight a4, he just goes b6, stops that. Or maybe not even stopping that, maybe queen c7 on the queen f4 check. So yeah, b6 is totally fine here. So now I bring my rook in, all of this happened, my position is still fine, but I'm now slightly worse. Knight g5, he repeats the moves, rook g8, I go f4 locking the position, and we just kind of dance around with our pieces a bit. I reroute, we repeat, and now I go knight g5. And this is where swindle number 2 starts. After rook f8, I bring my king, and here I should just go e6. e6 is how I draw the game. And after f takes e6, I should now go rook g7, f4, king to d2. And I just walk my king. And I think I can hold this. I win this pawn's weak, and like something like this happens, I can always check, force the king back, and now I can slowly push this pawn. And maybe he needs to be careful in some scenarios. Actually, this is probably losing for him. But I try and close the position, but obviously he's not going to let me go a5. And he should have actually went king d7 and go king e6 and get f4 and let me close the position, because I'm not fast enough with my play. So after b6, I have one last chance to play e6, but I don't do it. He brings his king, and now f4 is a nice move to bring his king here. And I try and open up some files for myself, get some play. He goes I go rook f6, and he goes rook a8. A nice move, forcing my king back, monitoring my pawn, and now he just pushes his pawns. But it's not as easy as you think it is. This is how I swindle, how I had 3 swindles in a 4-round tournament. So, this is where the fun begins. He goes king g2, and just gives me rook f5. And now I'm drawing the game. What he should have done was just go f3. Like, he should have just went f3 and done this. Or, no, he should have went king f4. I think this is what he missed. Is now, after rook g1, he can just go f2 and king f3, and he's winning. But king g2 just gives me this, and now I check, and I can take the pawn, which is the difference, because before, with king f4, I couldn't take the pawn because of f2. And of rook d8, rook f7. And I'm just lost. And after rook f5, all this happens, f3, I take the pawn. This is actually a draw now, but he still has some tricks. You know, I let him get this pawn because I know this pawn will be enough. King g2, d6, and I thought, okay, if f2, like d7, rook d4, so maybe, and I can just go king e2, and yeah, I'm drawing the game. So he goes rook b6, and I find this nice idea of going king e3. And he goes rook b3 check and keeps the game going. And now after king d2, he goes back. And I decide, you know what? We're going to try to like maybe trick him, because he's slowly getting low on time. And after king f2, I march my king up. I'm going to try and go here and win the pawn. Or I can go here, defend my pawn, and try and march my king up. I know this is a draw. But he goes rook b1. And this is like not a good move, because now I go rook d5. And now he only has one move to draw the game. I'll give you guys like 5 seconds. Or 3, 2, 1. Okay. The move to draw the game is rook d1 check. And the point of rook d1 is, after king c4, you might be thinking, I'm not fast enough, like he promotes. But this is actually a theoretically no draw. And the reason is, if I can maneuver the king, once I maneuver the queen here and do this, usually after queen g3 check, the king will have to move in front of the pawn, giving the white king the chance to come forward. But in this case, with the f pawn, you can actually go to the side. And after queen takes f2, it's stalemate. And if I try and stop the pawn like this, just go king g1, and he's threatening to promote again. But he doesn't see that. In the low time, he goes rook b3 check, and just lets me promote. And I think he forgot that he's not fast enough. My king is catching up to him, and he resigns in this position. So I'm at 2 out of 2, and this is the last round. And in the third round, I actually beat an international master, 24-58, and that puts me in a good spot to get national master. If I win, I get the national master title. So do I do it? Is the question, whether or not. This is about swindling. Do I swindle my opponent? Do I win? Do I draw? You'll just have to find out. So I'm actually playing a 2027 rated player here, and he plays the Karakan, and I do this h5, trying to get space. And he breaks the position immediately. The opening isn't really that important, so I'll just rush through it. We eventually trade queens like this, and now I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try and outplay my opponent with the amount of space I have. I go rook d1, bishop f3, if he goes 93, I can just go here, and yeah, don't try and do this. I'm just gonna win the knight. Like, knight rook h3, just wins the knight. So after bishop f3, he goes b5. He wants to mobilize his pawns, and he wants to try and get play on the queen side. And I go b3, which you might think is a bit dangerous. You know, he has knight takes e5, and it is, if I take the knight, that is. If this is rook c3, I'm just going to lose. But I actually have this intermezzo check. Knight takes d5, rook takes, f takes e5. This pawn is kind of weak, and I should be doing good here. So after b3, he goes knight b6, king b2, a5. He defends his pawn. And my position is kind of in a defensive bind as of now, but I want to try and go rook g3 and b4. And I thought, okay, my only chance to win is to somehow get b4 and win this pawn and try and use my a pawn to win the game. And he goes f6, and he takes the pawn. Now, of course, if I take with the pawn, like, this is just equal, but I was hoping I could get him some sort of rook g3, g5, and somehow mobilize my rooks to get something on the king side. But my original plan was to take with the rook, and I'm thinking I could get f5. But I just completely forget my knight is under attack. And after he takes, I was just like, oh no, I screwed up. But, and also one more thing, I'm at 3 out of 3, and I'm clear first place. The second place guy is the person I'm playing with 2.5, and everyone else is at 2. So actually all I need is a draw to win the tournament. So okay, we're just gonna go for the draw and hope the best. Like, we're up on time. Hopefully we can somehow win this pawn and try and like do something with our pawns here. And after king d6, rook d2, I defend the bishop, so now I can go rook b4 and bishop takes b5. And actually, this position is not like the worst ever. Like, I actually have some play here. If takes, king c6, I was gonna go a4, and if he goes rook g4, I have this move rook c2 check, king b7, and I can just take. And actually I'm doing really good here. Like rook f4, I can just take this pawn. And actually I think I'll probably win this game, even though it's a draw, because of my 2 pawns. So he takes. And he saw it after this, knight takes d7. But as you can see by the eval bar, he missed something. And he missed this backwards bishop move. Attacking his rook, attacking his knight, and he has to give up his piece back. And that's what happens. And apparently I should have taken like this. This is better, because he can't take like this because of bishop d5, which is what I missed. After rook b4, bishop b7 check, and bishop c8. And this is just completely winning. Yeah. So after knight c4 check takes, I do this and try and get my rook active and my pawns a bit more movable. That rook g4 would have been really nice to see. But he plays bishop a4, which is a really nice move because now I can't defend my pawn. And I go bishop d3 with the idea of trying to bring my bishop to g6 and rook to f7. And I want to try to mobilize my pieces to attack his king. And he has kind of a weak king, so I want to make the best use of it. After rook h4, now we go bishop g6, giving him rook b5 check. And now I should be losing again. But I'm like, let's not give up. Like, he blundered a piece before, so maybe he'll do something like that again. I take the pawn, rook h2, king b3, and d3. And now I go a4. He goes d2, and I bring the bishop back. And the only way to keep the advantage is rook h3. I don't even know how. I think you have to do something like this, maybe. Or bishop d3. But he goes bishop e2. And now it gives me rook d7. I'm monitoring the pawn. And now this is a draw, because he can't move this pawn. These pawns are not too far advanced. Not as far advanced as this pawn. And this pawn is going to create a lot of problems for him in the future. So I just move that up. Bishop c6. All this happens. And here he offers a draw. And I accept, because after king d2, I saw a world where something like this would happen, where I win this spawn, he wins this spawn, and I think I can hold. I could just keep my rook like along these files, or I can go like do something like this even. And this is a draw, although you do sometimes have to be careful, especially in these games where time pressure is very like it happens often. So yeah, I get a draw. I get 3.5 out of 4, and my new rating is now 2184. I get first place, and yeah, it was a pretty nice tournament. Like, especially since I was in the middle, I wasn't exactly in the top of the standings in the beginning of the tournament. And anyways, that's all for today. I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. I'm trying to reach 100 subs, and yeah, and I hope you all enjoyed the video. Goodbye, everyone.